An 8-year-old girl was found on the street, caring for 2 newborns in the freezing early hours. What seemed like a common case of abandonment turned into the most unsettling mystery of a millionaire's life when he recognized the necklace around the child's neck. It was identical to the one he had given to the woman he loved and lost. And now, 7 years later, DNA tests would reveal a truth that would shatter everything he believed in. The babies in the girl's arms were his own children. Subscribe to the channel for stories that touch your heart every day. A light drizzle created a veil of mist over the empty downtown streets. The millionaire adjusted the collar of his Italian wool coat as he stepped out of the black Mercedes-Benz, his English leather shoes clicking on the wet asphalt with military precision. At 42, a few silver strands graced his temples, contrasting with his dark, slicked-back hair. His calloused hands, the only marks of a humble past he tried to forget, held a document portfolio regarding the renovation of the building in front of him. It was just another investment, another property in his real estate portfolio that stretched across 3 states. The architect had requested his presence to resolve issues regarding the finishing touches on the project, which would cost $2 million. Business was his comfort zone, a place where emotions had no room, but something stopped him. On the opposite sidewalk, a small figure huddled against the damp wall of an abandoned building. It was a child, a girl no more than 8 years old, with tangled brown hair that hadn't seen a comb in days. Her little clothes, which were once pink, were now tinged grey with dirt and time. She was cradling something in her arms with the gentleness of someone handling crystal. 2 babies. Newborns judging by their size, the millionaire felt a pang in his chest that he couldn't name. For 7 years since Elena's death, he had built walls around his heart. Work, more work, investments, business expansion, anything to keep him away from painful memories. He had no time for compassion, no room for emotional involvement, but he couldn't look away. The girl hummed softly, a children's tune he didn't recognize. Her skinny hands stroked the babies' faces, trying to keep them warm. When one of them whimpered, she brought him closer to her chest, whispering words of comfort that the wind carried away before they reached his ears. Other passers-by hurried past, cell phones glued to their ears, avoiding looking in the child's direction. A woman in a business suit pulled her purse closer to her body as she passed. A man in a suit quickened his pace, pretending not to see. The millionaire crossed the street. As he approached, details became clearer. The blanket that wrapped the babies was torn in several places, but still offered some protection. A paper bag next to the girl contained some used diapers and an empty bottle. The smell of rain mixed with less pleasant odors that the situation inevitably created. "Hey!" he called, stopping about 6 feet away. The girl looked up. Her eyes were big and dark, with that depth that children in extreme situations develop too early. She showed no fear, only exhaustion, a resignation that shouldn't exist in someone so young. "Hi," she replied, her voice hoarse, probably from crying so much or from shouting for help that never came. "How long have you been here?" 3 days. The answer came out mechanically, as if she had already answered that question many times. "The woman left me here with them. Said she'd be back." "What woman?" A glimmer passed through the child's eyes. Not exactly tears, but something close to it. "I don't know. She just told me to take care of them, that they were important." The millionaire looked at the babies. One had lighter skin, thin, dark hair. The other was slightly smaller, with a small birthmark on his chin. Both seemed healthy, considering the circumstances. "Are you hungry?" The girl nodded, but her eyes remained watchful, as if she feared he would try to take the babies from her. "And them? When did they last eat?" "I gave them the leftover milk yesterday morning." She pointed to the empty bottle. A man gave me money yesterday, but I can't leave here. I can't leave them alone. Something in the way she spoke, in the fierce determination in her voice, touched a part of his soul that he thought was dead. The girl was not just a victim of circumstances. She was a tiny warrior, fighting battles that were not hers. That's when he saw it. Hanging around her neck, almost hidden by the folds of the coat that was too big for her, was a necklace, a crystal pendant in the shape of a teardrop with almost invisible engravings on its surface. The world stopped. The millionaire's legs gave way. He knelt on the wet asphalt, not caring about the dirt that would stain his $3,000 suit. His hands trembled as he pointed to the girl's necklace. "Where did you get that?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. The child recoiled instinctively, clutching the babies to her chest. "It's mine. It's always been mine." "No, no, I'm not going to take it from you." He took a deep breath, trying to control the emotions that were exploding in waves inside his chest. "But I need to see it. Can I see it up close?" Hesitantly, she leaned forward, allowing him to examine the pendant without touching it. The crystal was identical to the one he had commissioned 7 years ago. Every detail, every facet, every small engraving on the side that read, "For Elena, my eternal love, R.A." It was impossible. That necklace had been buried with Elena after the fire. He himself had made sure of it, in a gesture of love and mourning that almost destroyed him at the time. "Who gave you this necklace?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Nobody gave it to me. I've always had it." The girl touched the pendant fondly. "The woman who brought me here said it was important, that one day someone would understand." The millionaire felt the world spin. Elena had died pregnant. The firefighters had said that they found only one body, hers. The child, according to the reports, had died burned in the womb. He had carried that pain for all these years. But what if— "What's your name?" he asked, his voice coming out as a whisper. "I don't remember." The answer cut through the air like a blade. "Sometimes flashes come up. A White House, a garden with yellow flowers. But they're just pieces. The woman who brought me here called the babies strange names, Michael and Gabriel." Michael and Gabriel. The names Elena had chosen for the twins she was expecting. Names he had never told anyone, revealed only at the hospital, moments before the tragedy. The millionaire staggered to his feet. He needed air. He needed to think. But he couldn't just leave the children there. "You're coming with me," he said, taking off his coat and wrapping it around the three of them. "Let's get out of the rain." "No." The answer was firm. "You don't know us. You can't just take kids like that." The girl's logic surprised him. Even in that desperate situation, she maintained a sharp instinct for self-preservation. "You're right, but I can call people who can help, people who take care of children." "No!" This time the tone was panicked. "They'll separate us. They'll take them away. I promised I'd take care of them." "Who did you promise?" The child's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. "To her. To the voice." "What voice?" "Before the fire. A woman's voice told me to protect the little brothers, said I was special, that I had a purpose." The ground crumbled beneath his feet. Fire. Little brothers. Woman's voice. Each word was a piece fitting into a terrifying puzzle. "What fire?" he managed to ask. "The one that killed my mom." The tears finally flowed. "I was very little. I only remember the noise, the heat, the smoke. Someone picked me up, took me away. Then it was years living with different people. Until—" She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. The millionaire was piecing together a reality that defied everything he believed in. He grabbed his phone, dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Marcus, it's me. I need you to come downtown now and bring a medical team. Discreet." He hung up and looked at the child again. She watched him with a mixture of hope and terror. "What's your name?" she asked. "Robert." "Robert." "Andrade." Recognition flashed in her eyes like lightning. Something stirred in her fragmented memory. "R.A.," she whispered, touching the necklace. "The letters. R.A." The medical team arrived in 15 minutes. Marcus, the Andrade family's private doctor for 2 decades, stepped out of a discreet van, followed by 2 nurses. His serious face contracted with concern as he saw Robert kneeling on the wet ground beside the children. "Robert, what's going on?" Marcus approached, looking at the unusual scene. I need you to examine these children. Total discretion, Marcus. No one can know." The doctor nodded, accustomed to the Millionaire's peculiar requests. The nurses quickly prepared a sheltered space in the back of the van, creating a kind of mobile office. "No!" The girl pulled away, clutching the babies. "You're not going to touch them!" Robert crouched down again, trying to maintain the calm he was far from feeling. "No one's going to hurt them. We just want to make sure they're okay. They've been in the rain for days. I take good care of them." The defensiveness in the child's voice was fierce. "I know you do. You're brave, braver than many adults." Robert extended his hand slowly. "But they need vitamins, maybe antibiotics to prevent illness. And you, when was the last time you ate properly?" The girl's stomach rumbled in response, betraying her. Marcus joined the conversation, his tone soft and professional. "I can promise we won't separate you. How about everyone gets in the van? It'll be warmer. I can examine the babies while you watch." After long minutes of negotiation, the child finally agreed. Inside the van, while Marcus carefully examined the newborns, Robert called his lawyer. "Thompson, I need you here now, and I want you to prepare temporary guardianship papers." "Yes, it's 3 children." The girl heard everything, her eyes widening. "You're going to take us?" "For now, yes, until we understand what's going on." "Mr. Robert," Marcus's voice interrupted, "can I talk to you outside?" They got out of the van. Marcus looked disturbed. "The babies are surprisingly healthy considering the circumstances, but Robert, they're no more than 3 weeks old. And there's something strange." "What?" "They have cesarean section scars, very precise, professional. These weren't home births." Robert felt his blood run cold. "And the girl?" "Mild malnutrition, signs of prolonged stress, but nothing serious. However," Marcus hesitated, "she has old scars from burns, mostly on her back and arms." The van was silent for a moment. Robert leaned against the vehicle, trying to process the information. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I managed to collect some samples discreetly. For tests, if you want." "I do." And Marcus, absolute secrecy, always. When they went back inside, the girl was humming to the babies, who were now clean and wrapped in hospital blankets. She looked up distrustfully. "We're going to have to go with you, aren't we?" "Yes," Robert confirmed, "but it will be temporary until we get things sorted out." "What if I say no?" The question took everyone by surprise. Robert sat down next to her. "Then I would respect your decision, but I would continue coming here every day, bringing food, blankets, whatever you needed." The girl studied his face for a long moment. "Why? Why do you want to help us?" Robert looked at the necklace around her neck. The engravings seemed to glow in the light of the van. Because something tells me our destinies are connected." "Connected how?" He didn't know how to answer. Not yet. But something inside him, a voice that went beyond reason, said that these children were the key to a mystery that had defined the last 7 years of his life. "You'll stay together?" she asked finally. "Together," he promised. The girl nodded slowly, then looked at the babies. "Okay, but only until we find out who they are." What she didn't know, and Robert was beginning to suspect, was that Finding out who they were would completely change the concept of family for all of them. The mansion in the city's upscale neighborhood had never housed children. In the 3 years since Robert had bought the property, it had served only as a silent retreat from the chaos of business. Now, with the arrival of the 3 children, every room echoed with a life that had been missing for too long. Mrs. Henderson, the gray-haired housekeeper who had cared for the mansion for 15 years, received the children with British efficiency tempered with maternal affection. She quickly prepared a guest room on the ground floor, transforming it into a space suitable for the babies, with borrowed cribs and a nursing chair. The girl didn't let go of the newborns for a minute. "They need me," she repeated whenever someone offered help. "I promised." Robert watched from afar, fighting conflicting emotions. On one hand, the children's presence awakened memories of Elena that he preferred to keep buried. On the other hand, there was something about the way the girl cared for the babies that touched a part of himself he thought was dead. On the second day, the preliminary test results arrived. Marcus called personally. "Robert, you need to sit down for this." "I'm already sitting." "The babies, they have distinctive genetic characteristics, and before you ask, yes, I've already compared them to samples in your genetic bank." Robert had donated genetic material to a bank years ago when Eleanor had suggested it, worried about the possibility of complications in her pregnancy. And there are matches, significant ones. The phone almost slipped from Robert's hand. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there's a high probability that these babies are genetically your children." The silence that followed was deafening. "That's impossible, Marcus. I know, but the tests don't lie, and there's more." Robert closed his eyes, bracing himself. "The girl also has interesting genetic markers. She's not your daughter, I can confirm that. But she has genetic links to Elena. To Elena. Sister or close cousin. Most likely she's the daughter of one of her close relatives." Robert hung up the phone, his hands shaking. For 7 years he had carried the guilt of not having been able to save Elena and their daughter. Now he discovered that Elena might have other relatives, and that the 2 babies an orphaned child was caring for on the street were probably his own children. How was this possible? He found the girl in the garden, where she had taken the babies, to get some sun. She had placed them on a blanket and was singing softly, a melody he vaguely recognized. "Can I sit down?" he asked. She nodded, but kept her eyes on the babies. "Do you remember anything about your parents?" Robert tried, knowing he was treading on delicate ground. "Sometimes," her voice was distant, "I remember a woman with blonde hair. She called me my treasure. And there was a man, but the memories of him are scary." "Scary how?" The girl unconsciously touched the scars on her arms. "He yelled a lot, and there was always the smell of gasoline when he showed up." Robert felt a chill. Elena had died in a fire caused by a fuel leak in the laboratory where she worked. Investigations never determined if it was accidental or intentional. "And the babies? You really don't know where they came from?" "The woman who brought me, she said they were special, that they had a father who had been looking for them for a long time, but who didn't know they existed." The girl looked up. "She said I had to take care of them until the right father showed up." "The right father?" "Someone who would recognize the necklace." Robert touched the pendant that now hung from the child's neck. The initials R.A. seemed to pulsate. "Do you trust me?" he asked. The girl studied him for a long moment. "You're kind. And you haven't tried to separate us. Most adults try to separate families." "Family," Robert repeated, thinking about the concept. "It's what we are," she said simply. "Me, Michael, and Gabriel. Family is who takes care." At that moment, Robert made a decision that would change the course of their lives. What if I wanted to be part of that family, officially? The girl's eyes widened. What do you mean? Adoption? Guardianship? Making you legally my children? She blinked several times, processing the information. You would do that? For us? Yes, he answered without hesitation. I would. The child moved closer, her voice coming out as a whisper. What if we find out they have other parents? Real parents? Robert looked at the babies sleeping peacefully on the blanket. Then we'll do what's right. But until that happens, you have a home here, with me. For the first time since they met, the girl smiled. A small, hesitant, but genuine smile. Can I choose a name? She asked timidly. Of course. I want to be called Mary. Mary is the name of the woman who takes care of everyone. Robert nodded, feeling tears forming in his eyes. Welcome to the family, Mary. During the next 2 weeks, the routine of the mansion changed completely. Robert, who used to leave for the office before 6 in the morning and return after 9 at night, began working from home, setting up a temporary office where he could hear the babies and be available if Mary needed him. The transformation in the child was remarkable. With regular food, warm baths, and proper clothing, Mary began to demonstrate a vibrant personality that had been masked by survival. She was intelligent in a way that surprised everyone. She could read and do basic math, although she didn't remember where she had learned. Someone taught me, she said when asked. I remember a voice, a woman teaching me letters using colored blocks. Robert hired a home tutor, Mrs. Patterson, an experienced lady who specialized in children with trauma. The first session revealed more than they expected. She has advanced knowledge for her age, Mrs. Patterson reported. She knows concepts that 8-year-olds rarely master. Basic geometry, some words in English and French. Someone invested time and resources in her education, but it was in the way Mary cared for the babies that Robert saw something extraordinary. She seemed to sense their needs even before they cried. When Michael was restless, she sang a specific melody that calmed him. Gabrielle responded best to strokes on his hands, something she had discovered by instinct. One night, Robert found her in the room, sitting between the cribs, reading a book in a low voice to the sleeping babies. Do they understand? He asked, softly. Maybe, Mary answered without looking up from the book, but I think what's important is that they know they're safe. Robert sat on the floor next to her. How do you know how to take care of them so well? I don't know. Sometimes when I'm with them, it's like I hear instructions in my head. Do this. Try that. She closed the book and looked at him. Is that weird? Not weirder than many other things in our lives. During these days, Robert also noticed changes in himself. The bitterness he had carried for 7 years was being replaced by something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. For the first time since Elena's death, he thought about the future instead of simply surviving the present. But not everything was peaceful. Mr. Andrade Thompson, his lawyer, called on a Thursday afternoon. We have a problem. Someone is asking questions about the children. Robert felt his stomach tighten. What kind of questions? Questions about missing babies, about the girl with burn scars. A private investigator has been talking to people downtown, showing pictures. Pictures of who? Of the children. And you. Robert hung up and called Marcus immediately. I need the full DNA results now. Robert, it'll still take a few days. We don't have a few days. That night, after Mary fell asleep, Robert sat in the office and called a number he had avoided, dialing for years. William Hayes, a former police detective and now a private investigator, had been in charge of the investigation of the fire that killed Elena. Robert Andrade, Hayes answered on the second ring. 5 years, pal. Bill, I need your help, discreetly. It's always discreet when you call. What's up? Robert told him everything. The encounter with the children, the identical necklace, the suspicions about the babies. Hayes listened in silence. Jesus, Robert, you think... I don't know what to think, but someone is looking for these children, and I have a feeling it's not with good intentions. I'll take a look. Carefully. After he hung up, Robert checked the security cameras, activated the alarm system, and went up to the guest room where Mary and the babies were sleeping. Through the half-open door, he could hear the soft breathing of the three children. A wave of fierce protection washed over him. It didn't matter who they were or where they came from. It didn't matter what mysteries their presence brought to light. They were under his care now, and he wouldn't allow anything to hurt them. He stood watching until sleep overcame him, vowing that he would discover the truth, even if it destroyed everything he believed in. A week later, 3 reports arrived at the same time. The final DNA results, Bill Hayes's report, and an investigation into the necklace that Robert had requested from an antiques expert. Robert locked himself in the office to read all the findings. What he found made the ground crumble beneath his feet. The DNA report confirmed Michael and Gabriel were unequivocally his sons. More than that, they were Elena's sons. Impossible, but irrefutable. The report on Mary revealed something even more shocking. She was the daughter of Elena and Thomas Rutherford, Robert's former partner who had died in the same fire. And the necklace. Son of a bitch, Robert muttered, reading the expert's report. The pendant was not the same one he had made for Elena. It was a perfect copy, created with advanced technology, including nano-recording that allowed for the storage of digital data. The expert had managed to extract files, photographs, medical documents, videos. Robert connected the reader device to the computer with trembling hands. The first photo was of Elena, pregnant, but not the last time he had seen her. This Elena looked older, was in a different hospital, with documents dating from 2 years after her death. More photos. Elena holding 2 newborn babies. Elena with a small child with brown hair, clearly Mary, and then the medical documents. Elena had survived the fire, severely burned but alive. Thomas Rutherford had also survived and had planned everything. Robert read the files with growing horror. Thomas had discovered the genetic bank, had stolen biological material, had orchestrated the artificial insemination. He wanted children of Elena, but he also wanted revenge against Robert. 6-year-old Mary in the hospital after the fire, receiving skin grafts. The doctors noting how she cared for the babies as if they were her brothers. Elena between life and death, whispering instructions for her daughter to protect the special boys. More documents. Thomas's diabolical plan. Use the babies as bargaining. Chips train Mary to be the perfect caregiver, and when the time was right, use the situation to destroy Robert emotionally and financially. But Elena had found out. In the last video of the file, she appeared fragile, clearly ill, recording a message. Robert, if you're seeing this, it means we succeeded. Thomas is dead. I had to poison us both. It was the only way to stop his plan. Mary is safe, hidden. The babies, our babies, are with her. I trained Mary, told her about you, about the necklace. She will protect them until they find you. It may take years, but I trust that our destinies will meet. I love you. Always have. Take care of our family. Robert stopped the video in complete shock. Elena had died to protect the children. Thomas had died by her hand in a last desperate move to prevent a plan that had lasted years. The last file was from just 3 months ago, instructions for the woman who brought Mary and the babies to the city. Eleanor had planned everything before dying, preparing a network of people who would bring the children to Robert when he was ready. Robert turned off the computer and rested his head in his hands. The woman he loved had died twice to protect a family he didn't even know existed. Mary was his stepdaughter. Elena's daughter with the man who tried to destroy them. The babies were his own children, conceived through manipulation and revenge, but born of love. A gentle knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Mary, holding Gabriel. He was crying, she said softly. I think he's hungry. Robert wiped his eyes quickly. Of course. Let's make a bottle. In the kitchen, while he prepared a formula, Mary watched his every move. You're sad, she said. It wasn't a question. Sometimes adults get sad when they discover difficult truths, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. About us? Robert stopped what he was doing and knelt down next to her. Mary, I need to tell you some things, important things. She nodded seriously. You remember the woman with blonde hair you mentioned? A little. She was my wife, a long time ago. Mary's eyes widened. Mom Elena? Robert gasped. You remember her name? Not clearly, but sometimes when I look at you, I hear a voice in my head saying, Elena, and it talks about you, about how good you are. Did she tell you about me? She taught me many things. Told me that one day I would find a good man who would understand. The necklace, that he would take care of the special babies. Mary touched the pendant. You're him, aren't you? Robert nodded, unable to speak. And the babies? They're my sons, your brothers. Mary processed the information for a moment, then smiled, the first full smile Robert had seen since they met. So we really are a family? Yes, a real family. She threw herself into his arms, and he hugged her, feeling the weight of 7 years of pain and guilt transform into something new, responsibility, love, renewed purpose. They were interrupted by the phone. It was Hayes. Robert, you need to know. That private investigator, he's not looking for the children for their own. Good. What do you mean? He works for the Rutherford family. Thomas had a brother, Marcus Rutherford, and apparently he wants the babies. Robert felt his blood run cold. Why? Inheritance. Thomas left a substantial amount of money that can only be accessed through the babies. Marcus wants custody of them over my dead body. Robert, there's more. Marcus has resources, powerful lawyers, and he knows about the genetic manipulation. He's claiming the babies were stolen, that you kidnapped them. Robert looked at Mary, who was feeding Gabriel calmly, humming softly. She had lost so much, survived so much, and now someone wanted to destroy the family they had finally found. They're not taking our children, he said, his voice hard as steel. Robert, no. We're going to fight Hayes, with everything I have. After he hung up, Robert kissed the top of Mary's head. Is someone going to try to separate us? She asked, intuitively understanding the gravity of the situation. They'll try, but they won't succeed. Why are you so sure? Robert looked into her eyes, seeing Elena, seeing Thomas, but mainly seeing the brave girl who had protected her brothers on the street. Because we're a family, and families fight for each other. Mary nodded determinedly, adjusting Gabriel in her arms. Then let's fight. Marcus Rutherford arrived in the city on a grey Monday, along with a team of lawyers that looked like an army of dark suits. Robert knew this through Hayes, who had maintained discreet surveillance on the man's movements. He's at the Hyatt, Hayes reported by phone. 3 suites, a team of 5 lawyers, a child psychologist, and someone who appears to be a social worker. How much time do we have? Hours, maybe a day. They're preparing petitions, Robert. They're claiming you assumed guardianship of the children illegally, that Mary suffers from Stockholm Syndrome, and that the babies were subjects of kidnapping. Robert hung up and found his own legal team already gathered in the mansion's library. Thompson had called the best family lawyers in the state. They spread documents across the mahogany table, strategizing. The good news, Thompson said, is that we have the DNA tests. They unequivocally prove that Michael and Gabriel are your sons. And the bad news? Robert asked. Marcus Rutherford has evidence of the genetic manipulation. He's claiming you were complicit with Thomas in the original plan. That's absurd, we know. But he has the resources to make the legal battle long and devastating. Throughout this preparation, Robert noticed that Mary had become quieter. She continued to care for the babies with the same dedication, but there was a tension in her shoulders, a constant vigilance in her eyes. On Wednesday, the storm arrived. The first cars appeared at 7 a.m. From the security cameras, Robert saw black Mercedes and BMWs parking in front of the mansion gates. Men and women in suits got out, carrying briefcases and documents. "Mary," he called upstairs, "come down, please." She came down carrying Michael, while Mrs. Henderson brought Gabriel. The housekeeper had become attached to the children in recent months, and her eyes showed concern. "Are they here?" Mary asked simply. "Yes." "What's going to happen now?" Before Robert could answer, the intercom rang. Thompson answered it. "Mr. Andrade, it's Marcus Rutherford. He would like to speak with you." Robert took a deep breath and picked up the intercom. "Mr. Rutherford, I can imagine why you're here. I've come to get the children you kidnapped from my brother. Your brother died 7 years ago. My brother left heirs. Those babies are his children, conceived through the genetic material he had preserved, and the girl is his daughter with Elena. By right, they are my responsibility. The DNA tests say different. Ah, yes, the tests that prove you are somehow the father of the babies. Very convenient, don't you think? I'm here with a court order to examine those children and investigate how you managed to fabricate those results." Robert looked at Mary, who was listening to everything with an expression too serious for an 8-year-old. "Let them in," he said finally. The gates opened, and the legal procession invaded the property. Marcus Rutherford was a tall, angular man with cold eyes that uncomfortably resembled Thomas's. He swept the mansion's hall with the calculating gaze of someone assessing assets. "Where are the children?" was his first question. "Here," Robert replied, keeping a protective hand on Mary's shoulder. Marcus approached, studying Mary intently. "Do you remember me?" Mary looked at him calmly. "No." "I'm your father's brother. You lived with me when you were little." "My father is dead," Mary replied. "Yes, he is, and that's why you should be with me, not with this man." One of the lawyers stepped forward, handing papers to Thompson. "Court order for immediate medical examination of the children and psychological evaluation of the minor over my dead body," Robert said. "Mr. Andrade," the psychologist approached, "I understand that you have developed an attachment to the children, but if you really care about their well-being—" "No," Mary interrupted, surprising everyone. "I remember now." All eyes turned to her. "I remember you," she said to Marcus. "You hit her." "What?" "Mom Eleanor. When Uncle Thomas wasn't around, you said she had seduced your brother, that because of her he had abandoned the family." Tears began to roll down Mary's face. "And you locked me in the basement when I tried to defend her." A tense silence filled the hall. Marcus tried to maintain his composure. "Traumatized child says many things. Is it a lie?" Mary stared at him. "Is it a lie that you sold Mom's things when you thought she was dead? Is it a lie that you said you were going to give me away because I was the product of your brother's mistake?" Marcus's face turned red. Robert stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You will never come near these children again." "I have court orders," Marcus began, "and I have enough money to fight your orders until you get tired," Robert replied. "Thompson, what options do we have? We can file counter-petitions, question the validity of the documents presented, request more time, do everything." Marcus smiled coldly. "You can't run from the truth forever, Andrade. These babies are Rutherford heirs, and I will prove that you manipulated the DNA tests. Try." After hours of arguments, legal threats, and extreme tension, the lawyers finally left. They had managed to delay the examinations for 48 hours, but Robert knew it was just a temporary victory. When the door closed, Mary broke down. "I don't want to go back to him," she sobbed. "He's bad, really bad." Robert wrapped her in his arms. "You won't, I promise." "How can you promise that?" Robert looked at Thompson, then at Mrs. Henderson, who was holding the babies as if they were her own grandchildren. "Because we're going to fight, and when you fight for family, you do whatever it takes." Mary pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes. "Then let's fight, all of us." And at that moment, Robert knew they were no longer just protecting children. They were protecting a family that had been forged in pain, tempered in love, and that would not be destroyed by greed or revenge. Robert didn't sleep that night. He spent the hours navigating between phone calls, mobilizing resources, calling in favors accumulated over decades of business. By 5 a.m., he had armed a strategy that Marcus Rutherford didn't expect. "Thompson," he said in the first phone call of the day, "I want you to hire investigators to scour Marcus Rutherford's entire life. All the secrets, all the scams, all the skeletons in the closet." "Robert, that could be seen as intimidation." "I don't care. They declare war. They get war." The second phone call was to Hayes. "Did you find anything on Marcus in Thomas's files?" "Some interesting things. It seems Marcus was always jealous of his brother. There are indications that he tried to sabotage Thomas's businesses several times." "Keep digging." The third phone call was to someone he hadn't contacted in years. James Mitchell, editor of the city's largest newspaper. "James, Robert Andrade, I need a favor." "Robert, it's been years. What do you need?" A story about greed, genetic manipulation, and a man trying to steal children from their real father." At 8 a.m., when Mary came down for breakfast with the babies, she found Robert still wearing the clothes from the previous day, surrounded by documents. "You didn't sleep," she observed. "Couldn't sleep. Is it because of him?" Robert nodded. "I'm not going to let anyone separate us, Mary. But to do that, I need to fight with the weapons I have." "What weapons?" "Influence, resources, truth." Mary sat down next to him, Gabriel in her lap. "How can I help?" Robert smiled for the first time in 24 hours. "Keep being who you are. Keep taking care of your brothers. And when his lawyers arrive, tell the truth." At 10 a.m., the first results of the investigation into Marcus began to arrive. The man wasn't as clean as he seemed. There were old accusations of malfeasance, misuse of charitable funds, and indications that he had tried to usurp his brothers' businesses even before the fire. More importantly, there was evidence that Marcus knew about Thomas's plan and hadn't tried to stop it. "He's not a concerned uncle," Thompson concluded. "He's a greedy man trying to take advantage of orphaned children." At 11:30 a.m., a group of social workers and psychologists arrived to evaluate Mary and the babies, but Robert was prepared. He had hired his own team of experts, including Dr. Sarah Chen, a renowned child psychiatrist, and Dr. Antonio Silva, a molecular geneticist. The evaluation lasted 3 hours. Throughout the time, Robert watched from the library window, seeing Mary answer the questions with the calmness and intelligence that constantly surprised him. When the professionals finished, Dr. Chen came to speak with him. "Mr. Andrade, that girl is remarkable, not only in her ability to care for the babies, but in her emotional stability. She has clearly suffered trauma, but has developed extraordinary coping mechanisms. And she has a genuine connection with these children. Separating them would be cruel and destructive." Dr. Silva was equally conclusive. "The DNA tests are irrefutable. The babies are genetically your children. Any suggestion of manipulation of the results is absurd." In the afternoon, the first article came out in the newspaper. The headline was devastating. Millionaire fights greedy brother-in-law to protect children and orphaned stepdaughter. The story told the whole tale. The fire, the supposed death of Eleanor, Thomas's diabolical plan, the miraculous survival of the children, and now Marcus's attempt to steal the children to access the inheritance. The phone didn't stop ringing. Journalists, offers of support, even celebrities wanting to help. Public opinion quickly turned against Marcus. At 4 p.m., Marcus returned, this time with less pomp, but noticeably angrier. "You think you can destroy me in the press," was his first sentence. "I don't need to destroy you," Robert replied calmly. "You're doing it yourself. Those babies are entitled to the inheritance." "What inheritance, Marcus? Thomas's dirty money, the money he got by manipulating and lying? He was my brother. He was a criminal, and you knew it." Marcus turned red. "Prove it." Thompson stepped forward, handing him an envelope. "Correspondence? Between you and Thomas found in his office, dated from before the fire. You knew about the plan, Marcus. You knew and did nothing to stop it." Robert saw the moment when Marcus realized that the battle was lost. His lawyers whispered urgently in his ears. "This isn't over," Marcus said, finally. "No," Robert agreed. "It will be over when you sign the papers abdicating any claim on the children, and when you pay compensation for all the suffering you've caused. Never. Then I'll see you in court, with all the press watching, with the whole country knowing how you tried to steal orphaned children." Robert smiled coldly. "Your choice." That night, after everyone had left, Robert sat on the porch with Mary. The babies were sleeping in strollers beside them. "Is it going to be okay?" she asked. "Yes, it's going to be." "How are you so sure?" Robert looked at her, seeing Elena in the delicate features of her face, but also seeing the unique strength that was only her own. "Because you're stronger than him. Because the boys have a family that loves them. Because the truth is more powerful than the lie." Mary nodded, then snuggled against him. "Dad, Robert?" It was the first time she had called him that. Robert felt his heart warm. "Yes, Mary?" "Thank you for fighting for us. I will always fight for you. Always." And as he watched the stars emerging in the dark sky, Robert knew that this was not just a legal battle. It was the fight for a family that deserved to be protected, a love that deserved to be defended, and a future that was worth any sacrifice. The courtroom was packed on Friday morning. Journalists, onlookers, and supporters filled the galleries. Robert entered with Mary by his side, followed by Thompson and a team of lawyers. Mary wore a light blue dress that Mrs. Henderson had carefully chosen, simple, but it highlighted her natural dignity. Marcus Rutherford was already present, visibly less confident than in previous days. His lawyers looked anxious, constantly whispering in his ears. Judge Henderson, a grey-haired man known for his impartiality, called the session to order. "This is a complex case," he began. "We have issues of custody, legitimacy of DNA tests, allegations of genetic manipulation, and the well-being of 3 minor children. We will proceed with dignity and focus on what is best for the children involved." Marcus's lawyer, Dr. Patterson, rose first. For an hour, he presented a technical argument trying to discredit the DNA tests, suggesting conspiracy and manipulation of results. When it was Thompson's turn, he calmly dismantled each argument. "Your Honor, we have here 3 independent laboratories confirming the same results. We have experts in molecular genetics attesting to the authenticity of the tests. More importantly, we have documentary evidence about Thomas Rutherford's criminal plan." Thompson projected onto the screen copies of the correspondence found in Thomas's office, showing how he had planned the genetic manipulation years before. "Mr. Marcus Rutherford not only knew about his brother's plan," Thompson continued, "but he financially benefited from it. We found bank transfers showing that Marcus received money during the years he was supposed to be caring for Elena and the children. Marcus's face turned dark red. Furthermore, Thompson continued, we have the testimony of the minor Mary about the abuse she suffered at the hands of the applicant. Objection! Dr. Patterson stood up. The minor has suffered trauma that may affect her perception. Denied, the judge ruled. I will hear the child. Mary, will you approach? Mary walked to the front of the room with firm steps. Despite her young age, there was an almost regal quality in the way she moved, as if she carried a responsibility greater than herself. Mary, the judge began gently, do you understand where you are? Yes, sir. I'm in a courtroom. It's where you decide what's right and what's wrong. A murmur of approval passed through the gallery. Do you remember Mr. Marcus? Mary looked directly at Marcus. I remember. He was my biological father's brother. And how did he treat you? Badly. The answer was simple but loaded. He hit my mom when he thought no one was watching. He told me I was a problem, that I cost too much money. When I tried to protect Mom Elena, he locked me in the basement. And what about the babies? Did you know who they are? Yes, they're my brothers, Mom Elena's sons with Dad Robert. She looked at Robert with genuine love. Mom taught me to take care of them. She said that one day we would find Dad. How did you know that Mr. Robert was the father? Mary touched the necklace. Because of this. Mom said that when I found someone who recognized the necklace, I would know he was the right dad. Dr. Patterson stood up again. Your Honor, the child is clearly confused. I'm not confused, Mary interrupted, her voice firm. I know what I've lived through. I know who hurt me, and I know who takes care of me now. The judge nodded. You may return to your seat, Mary. As Mary returned, Robert saw the pride in her eyes. She had been brave, honest, and powerful. The session continued for another 2 hours. Witnesses were called. Mrs. Henderson spoke about how the children had naturally integrated into the house. Dr. Chen testified about Mary's emotional stability and the genuine connection with the babies. Dr. Silva again confirmed irrefutably the results of the tests. Finally, it was Marcus's turn to speak. He stood up, visibly shaken. I just wanted to protect the children. Thomas was my brother. Mr. Rutherford, the judge said dryly, are you aware that you are under oath? Marcus hesitated, then sighed. The correspondences are real. I knew about Thomas's plan, but I thought it was to protect the children. Protect them by leaving an 8-year-old child to care for 2 babies on the street. I didn't know where they were. The woman who worked for Thomas, she hid them. And you never tried to find them in the following 7 years. Silence. The judge dismissed the room for deliberation. 20 minutes later, he returned. This case has involved serious allegations and profound implications for the well-being of 3 children, he began. After reviewing all the evidence, considering all the testimony, and assessing what is best for the minors, Robert held Mary's hand. It is determined that Robert Andrade is the biological father of the minors Michael and Gabriel Andrade. Full parental custody is granted to Mr. Andrade. Mary squeezed his hand. As for the minor Mary, although she is not Mr. Andrade's biological daughter, it is evident that she has developed genuine family ties. Custody is equally granted to Mr. Andrade. Applause erupted in the gallery. Mr. Marcus Rutherford, the judge continued, it is determined that your allegations were unfounded and motivated by greed. Furthermore, you are prohibited from contacting the children without judicial supervision. Marcus collapsed in his chair, defeated. Robert hugged Mary, tears streaming down both of their faces. We won, Mary whispered. We won, he confirmed. Outside the courthouse, facing a crowd of journalists, Robert made a brief statement. Today, justice has prevailed. These children will remain where they belong, in a family that loves them. We thank everyone who has supported us in this battle. A journalist shouted, "Mr. Andrade, what comes next?" Robert looked at Mary, then at the strollers where Michael and Gabriel were sleeping peacefully. "Now we're going home. We're going to be a family." 6 months after the legal battle, the Andrade mansion had transformed completely. Where once there were silent corridors and empty rooms, now echoed children's laughter, animated conversations, and the full life of a family. Robert was in the garden on a Saturday afternoon, pushing a swing where Mary laughed gleefully. At the foot of a tree on a colorful blanket, Michael and Gabriel crawled, exploring every leaf and stone like little scientists. "Hiya, Dad!" Mary shouted, reaching out her arms to touch the leaves of the lower branches. Robert smiled. The word Dad still made his heart race every time he heard it. In recent months, he had learned about late-night trips to check on babies, about bedtime stories that needed to be told 3 times, about how different cries meant different things. Mrs. Henderson appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mr. Robert, the Patterson family has arrived for lunch." Robert's social life had changed radically. The man who once avoided social engagements now hosted families with children, organized barbecues on Sundays, and discovered the simple pleasure of watching his children play with other little ones. "Mary, let's go greet our guests." She jumped off the swing and helped carry the babies inside. Michael was trying to walk on his own now, holding onto the furniture, while Gabriel preferred to crawl at impressive speed. During lunch, while the children played in the yard and the adults talked on the porch, Robert reflected on how his life had gained meaning. Work was still important, but it was no longer his sole reason for existing. "Robert," John Patterson, father of twins the same age as Mary, commented, "You seem to have found a remarkable balance." "It hasn't been easy," Robert admitted. "But these children, they've taught me that family isn't about biological kinship. It's about commitment, love, and being present in the moments that matter." Mary appeared on the porch, holding a drawing. "Dad, I made this for you." It was a portrait of the family, Robert, Mary, Michael, and Gabriel, holding hands in front of the house. At the top of the sheet, with careful, childlike lettering, was written, "My real family." "It's beautiful, Mary." Robert hugged her. "I'm going to frame it and put it in my office." That night, after the guests had left and the children were sleeping, Robert sat in the office looking at Mary's drawing. On his desk was a letter that had arrived the previous week from Marcus Rutherford. The letter was a confession and a request for forgiveness. Marcus admitted his greed, apologized for the suffering he had caused, and informed him that he had decided to use Thomas's inheritance to create a trust fund for the babies, managed by Robert. "Perhaps," the letter said, "this can, in some way, compensate for the harm I caused." Robert had decided not to respond yet. Forgiveness was a process, not a one-time event. Mary appeared in the office doorway in her pajamas. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Just thinking." She snuggled into his lap. "About what?" "About how we got here. About your mum. About how she knew our paths would cross." Mary was silent for a moment. "Sometimes I still dream about her." "What kind of dreams?" "Good ones. She says she's proud that she made the right choices." Mary looked at him. "Do you think she sees us?" Robert touched the necklace she still wore every day. "I think in some way, yes." "Dad, Robert?" "Yes." "Do you think one day the babies will remember all this? The time on the street, the fight in court?" Robert thought carefully. "Maybe not the details, but I think they'll always know they were loved, protected and cared for by you when they were most vulnerable. And when they grow up, I'll tell them the whole story, so they understand how we became a family." "Will you tell them they aren't my biological sons?" "Aren't they?" Mary smiled mischievously. Because to me, you are my real family. Blood is just a tiny thing compared to love. Robert hugged her tighter, thinking about how an 8-year-old girl could have more wisdom than many adults. That moment, a soft cry came from the children's room. Gabriel had woken up. "I'll rock him," Mary offered, jumping off his lap. "We'll go together." In the room, Gabriel was standing in the crib, small fists gripping the bars. When he saw Robert and Mary, he smiled and babbled something that sounded suspiciously like "Papa." Mary picked up the little boy while Robert checked on Michael, who was sleeping soundly. "He's growing so fast," Mary observed. "You all are." She began to sing, the same melody she sang that first night on the street. But now the words were different. "Sleep, my brother. In our home of the heart, Dad is here and will never depart." Gabriel relaxed in her arms, his little eyes closing again. After putting him back in the crib, Robert and Mary stood for a moment in the quiet room, watching the two boys sleeping. "Dad, Robert," Mary whispered. Thank you for saving us." "Mary, you don't understand yet. You're the ones who saved me." She looked at him curiously. "Before you came along, I just existed. I worked, I made money, but I wasn't really living. You brought me back to life. And now I know what my purpose is, to take care of you, to love you, to prepare you to be good people in the world." Mary smiled. "Like Mom Elena did with me?" "Exactly." They left the room together. In the hallway, Robert picked up a framed photo on the wall, a photo that Mary had drawn and that Mrs. Henderson had had printed. It was Elena, based on Mary's descriptions, embracing all 4 of the people who now formed the Andrade family. "I think she would approve," Robert said softly. "I'm sure she would." They walked together towards their rooms. At the door to Mary's room, she hugged him. "Good night, Dad, Robert. I love you." "Good night, my daughter. I love you too." Alone in his room, Robert prepared for sleep. But before that, he took out a diary he had started writing a few weeks earlier. A record of special moments, first words, first steps, so that the children could one day read about their childhood. That night he wrote, "Mary made a drawing today. She drew us as a family. I realized it wasn't just an artistic representation, it was a manifesto, a declaration that love is not defined by genetics, but by choice, care, and presence." "Gabriel," said Dad for the first time today. Michael tried to take his first steps. Mary helped cook dinner and told a story she made up about dragons who protect precious treasures, their families. Elena, wherever she is, succeeded. Her plan worked. The children found their home, and I found my purpose. He closed the diary and looked out the window. The moon illuminated the garden where just months before he had made the first promise to protect these children. Now that promise had transformed into something bigger, a life mission, a commitment of love that went beyond any legal contract or blood tie. In the silence of the night, Robert made a new promise. "I will tell them this story. I will teach them that families can be formed in the most unexpected ways. I will show them that true love knows no limits of blood, age, or circumstance." And as he fell asleep, a sense of completeness enveloped him. For the first time in 7 years, Robert Andrade was not just a successful businessman. He was a father. He was family. He was home. The next morning, he would wake up to the sound of laughter in the garden, rush to join the pillow fight that Mary had started on the couch, and help Michael with his first steps, while Gabriel tried to eat his own foot. And it would be perfect. Chaotic, noisy, disorganized, and perfect. Elena's necklace would continue to hang from Mary's neck, no longer as a mystery to be solved, but as a symbol of how love transcends death, how hope can transform tragedy into miracle, and how real families are the ones we choose to love. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day.